Hello everyone, welcome to another video. I'm so sorry that I have had a delay as far as me posting videos is concerned. This past 2 months have been very strenuous. I've had a lot going on and I had to sort of help plan a very big event. So that took up a good chunk of my time as well as many other people. Um, but now I should be set and ready to go as far as my whole schedule is concerned. So I will be giving you guys 2 videos for the price of one for this month. So I'm going to be doing September's video as well as October's video. And I thought it'd be interesting to kind of drift away from entertainment now, since I've kind of done pretty much up until this point as far as this year is concerned with videos, entertainment related stuff, and focus on stuff that's a little bit more random and, just kind of things that have been sort of on my mind and some things that I think sort of tie in with entertainment, but are sort of separate conversations within themselves. So for September's video, I thought it'd be interesting to discuss living in California, the pros and cons, because I've pretty much lived in California all of my life, and I think I can definitely say sort of what the pros and cons are of living here. As far as, you know, not just from my perspective also, but I think the kind of more universal perspective as well, as far as me talking with people, I could sort of see the similar things that we as Californians enjoy living here and what we don't enjoy about living here. So I thought I would kind of lay out for you guys kind of a little summary as far as what the pros and cons are. And I kind of wanted to start off with the pros because they might be somewhat obvious to people, even if they don't live in California, but they may also be kind of surprising to some as well. But as far as what's, I think, great about living in California, for the most part, a pro I would say is definitely the weather. Now, it can get fairly hot here in the summer, like 90s, 100s, especially if you're in Southern California. So even though it does get hot during that portion of the year, in particular around um, July, June, maybe even but more so July, August, September, maybe a little bit of October, but once it hits October or mid-October, it pretty much kind of, I think, cools off by then. But those 3 months are like really the most, I think, difficult months because it's really hot and very uncomfortable. But I will say that despite it being hot, it's not like a humid hot. It's more so a dry hot. So you don't get the kind of weather conditions that you get in, I think, Florida, where they have kind of the very humid, sticky, tropical heat. We more so have the desert kind of heat where it's just really dry and just very uncomfortable for those months. But despite that, I think the overall weather scene here is a pro, and I think a big reason why people love living here, because you get out in the morning and it's sunny. You can experience the day with just being able to see the nature and everything and being able to take in the surroundings, I think, more so, because again, it is so sunny all the time. And I think that's definitely a huge incentive for people, because there's people who live in other states and it just snows constantly or it rains constantly. And to come to California is probably a big plus for some people. But I mean, it depends. Some people love the rain and think the rain is amazing. I like the rain in doses. So I would say that it does rain here, but it's, again, on and off, kind of not really as bad or as severe as other areas that you go to within the United States. So I would say it's a very huge incentive, because when you look at all of the other different kind of weather systems, I guess, around the United States, especially with the fact that you can get hurricanes in Florida, um, even Texas, and you have tornadoes throughout the Midwest and things like that. I can definitely understand why there is a good portion of people that would want to live out here where you don't really get that kind of um, severe, consistent kind of damaging weather. I think although earthquakes are kind of a part of California, we haven't had a major one as of 20 years roughly, so we're sort of due, I think, for one, but it's one of those things where it's just kind of unpredictable, um, and it could happen, it could not happen. It's kind of up in the air, whereas in other states, you're almost kind of guaranteed to experience either a hurricane or experience a tornado, or they're kind of more consistent, I would say, than California's earthquakes. So again, the weather kind of has some little cons thrown in there, but I think overall the weather in California is just it's pretty nice. It's nice to walk out and have it be sunny in the day and have it be nice and pleasantly cool at night, and just not having something that's too severe, I would say. Like it's not as the weather isn't as severe, um, as far as it being way too hot in to the point where it's like uncomfortable in Florida. And again, it doesn't really get way too cold, depending on if you're maybe in Northern California. I'm not sure how exactly the weather is up there. It's probably a little bit cooler, but at the same time, when you're speaking more in general, I think Californians really enjoy the weather here. I don't think there's a huge amount of people complaining about the weather. Um, but again, it does get hot in summer, and that is uncomfortable. But luckily, there's the beaches, and people just kind of go there, and usually it ends up being fine because usually the beaches maintain relatively low 80s to high 70s. So you get yourself a little bit of a comfortable medium there as far as the weather is concerned. Um, Now, another big pro, I would definitely say more so than a con, living here, is the scenery. We have everything. We've got mountains, we've got lakes, we've got um, snow up in the mountains. If you go up to some of the mountains in California, there is snow. I don't know if it's all year round. I think it kind of just depends on where you go. But there's a lot of places that do have uh, different kinds of activities to do. There's the beaches, um, there's forest as well, desert. It has everything. A taste of every little bit of scenery you could possibly want is in California. Now, as far as the scenery is concerned, some people maybe prefer one set of scenery over another, and hence they live in that particular area within California, or they live in another state where there's, more of a certain kind of scenery. But what I really enjoy about California is the fact that you can go anywhere and experience something a little bit different. And that's what's really nice about the nature here. There's a lot of variety to it, and there's just a lot of beauty to it as well. And it's very pleasant, and it's definitely what brings the tourists here. I would definitely say that. Also Disneyland, obviously, but and Napa. Apparently, Napa is like the second most popular thing to do in California. But the scenery overall here, and the national parks and the Channel Islands and all these other crazy and amazing things, you can't really find anywhere else, I think. And that's what makes California so feel like home to me a lot of the time, is the fact that we have all of this different kind of different kinds of scenery going on, and just you can just go somewhere up the state and have a completely kind of different experience than you do in the southern part of the state. So it's very pleasant in that sense, and I would definitely say that is a huge incentive for people to uh, that do live in California that stay here is because we have such great feats of landscape, and it definitely shows. I think what's also great about living in California, and I think this is sort of like a cultural thing, is the fact that we have sort of a more laid back, relaxing lifestyle. It's not like where you go to New York and it's like everybody's all over the place and, oh, I gotta go here, gotta go there, gotta go get this and that and na. Yeah, you do get the little bit of the rush hour, so to speak, when people are going to work and stuff, but the overall kind of lifestyle is not like that. People are a lot more kind of laid back about things. You know, I think people are a lot more, they're more into having a conversation with you, and they're not as uptight, I'd say. And I think that's what's enjoyable about California is it's kind of goofy in that way. We don't take life too seriously. And I think that's just something that I personally enjoy more than living living somewhere where it's kind of, you're constantly going all over the place, and it's very kind of rigid. It's not as, there's no flexibility to it. It's like you can't kind of live the way you want to live. And I kind of like how in California you could sort of experience life the way you want to, and there's no like pressure constantly on you to do things. And it allows you to take things at your own pace, and it's just it's just more of a welcoming, I think, environment, that makes it, again, it makes it really enjoyable. Some people could probably see this as a con and say like, oh, we don't get anything done or nothing gets accomplished, but I think there is still a portion of California that's still like, we still genuinely, I think, do work hard, and we do you know a lot of different things, and are have a lot of different industries to offer as far as um, employment and work is concerned. But I like the fact that we you don't have to feel that constant pressure on yourself, and you can really kind of just enjoy who you are as a person, and just take life the way you want to. And I think there's a certain level of liberty in that I think is nice. It's not like everybody has to be uniform and everybody has to be the same, and it's definitely something that I personally enjoy a lot about living here. Um, and I would say definitely the most, or one of the most positive things about living here is that there's a lot of things to do. Like, even if you don't really live in a big town within California, there's still always some place to go, something to see, because it's just so big. California is pretty massive as far as the state is concerned. I don't know if I'm thinking Texas is bigger, um, it, or California might be bigger than Texas. I know there's somewhere within the uh, size of Texas, but there's just always something, I think, to do here, and something to explore, and there's always something that you could kind of go back to, even, and enjoy the same way that you did, you know, the past time that you were there. So that's kind of really the essence, I think, as far as what makes California so great. There's a lot of these overall pros that I think tie in sort of together that make it very very nice and very enjoyable as far as the state is concerned to live in. Now, as far as the cons are concerned, this is a big one. This is something that's really, I think, a huge challenge for a lot of people in California, and people who've probably even moved to California, is the cost of living. Um, Compared to other states, California is pretty high as far as the cost of living is concerned. Um, and I'm talking pretty much everything. Like, the taxes are higher, and it's higher on everyone. It's not just high on a certain group of people, it's high on everybody. So it's very it's very like it's very concerning when you know put in your effort and you don't get that much in return to show for it, because a lot of what you get paid to do is kind of taken out. And so our income tax, I think, is pretty high, and is a little ridiculous for what we spend. And I think a lot of those kinds of state laws should change. And I think it would maybe incentivize more businesses, I think, to come to California, because I think it's not only hurting people, it's also hurting the businesses, especially the small ones, or even the from small to large. Like it's just the overall cost of living, I think, really hurts everybody in California. It's so astronomically high to live in this state that a lot of people and even businesses kind of just go to other states to do their stuff, because the burden is just so severe. And I think that's very unfortunate, because I don't think that's personally fair, because I mean, we do, I think, contribute a lot as far as the state is concerned. Like, we're the entertainment capital of the world, pretty much. And we have a huge tech center within Silicon Valley that was really where everything kind of got the ball rolling as far as technology is concerned. So I think, you know, despite those two things, there's still people who kind of feel that the cost is just so astronomically high that all these nice pros that I was saying earlier aren't worth the cost, because the cost is just so astronomical. And some people may have made the argument that, oh, well, you know, if you move to another state, you know, you might get paid less. But to be honest, I think pretty much the income as far as across state lines is not too much different, because even in California, you don't get paid as much until you have a certain level of experience that's, you know, that gets you really into the middle class, because again, the costs are just so astronomically high. And this is something that's all, I think, really important to note. It's not only just the taxes, but it's the cost of the real estate. So if you want to rent in California, it's expensive, ridiculously expensive. If you want to buy a home in California, it's ridiculously expensive. It is double the price of what it costs in other states. It's just ridiculous, and it's the same home pretty much, or the same size, you know, and you know, you plan to save all this money, and you know, see if you can put in a down payment for something, and even the down payment doesn't pretty much cover it much, and it ends up being, what you end up getting is not something nice. Like, you, unfortunately, I would say like a shack here, and I'm not literally saying a shack, but I'm saying like a home that is not that nice and not that well kept or taken care of, is at least $400 to $500,000. It's insane, the level of cost that is involved with this. I mean, it's I don't really get it. I don't understand like why it has to be this high. Especially when other states don't have it that high as other people. I don't get it. But I guess there's been an argument made that, well, they're not building as much real estate in California. And I don't know if it has to do with maybe that there's more people leaving now, or what the deal is, but um, yeah, it's just the amount that you pay for what you get is is unfortunately, I think, very pitiful. And it's sometimes it's a very big commitment, I would say. So if you are considering moving to California, expect the price for everything to pretty much be double, because it's just that's just the cost of living here. It's just much higher. And it's definitely not the same as some other states. Now, I know there's some other states that are pretty expensive too, like I think New York is pretty expensive to live, which I would probably never in my life want to live in New York. But when you think of the kinds of the different states, California is one of the highest as far as the cost of living. It's just astronomical. And it makes it very difficult for people to kind of, it just makes it more difficult for people to just get into the middle class and, you know, build a foundation for their lives. It's been very, very, I think, strenuous and difficult for people. Um, but yeah, that's a very huge, huge, huge con. And everybody, I think, from who I talked to has said, yeah, it's ridiculous. It's it's very, very unfortunate. Um, so another con, and I would say this is definitely something that's, I think, something that could be part of other people's states as well. That again is probably fairly high, but I think in California, this goes to another level, and that's the traffic. Now, this is going north or south, like it doesn't really matter where you're going. Usually California is full of traffic because there's a lot of people. Especially if you're going to LA or if you're going north to San Francisco, it's just pretty much a lot of stop and go. And I think that makes it very, very strenuous on people, especially if you work in LA. Like there's tons of people that, the only way they can really get a good living is by working in LA. But a lot of people don't really want to live in LA because it's already so crowded to live in LA. So they live more so where I live, and they commute down to LA, and it must be so hard. I don't think I could do it because it's just ridiculous just to drive all the way down to LA. And especially when nowadays, especially when this is talking most white collar jobs. Most white collar jobs, you're just sitting at a desk doing work. Like, you could do it in your pajamas, in your bedroom. Like, there's no reason why you should have to drive hours to just go to work. It's a complete joke. It's really ridiculous, and not only is the traffic portion of it really bad in California, but the roads are awful. Like they are not well maintained at all. Um, there's a lot of poor infrastructure as far as the highways are concerned, and it looks pretty pitiful. And I'm very disappointed that the city hasn't done a good enough job in like trying to fix that because I mean, it makes it more secure when you're driving on a freeway that doesn't have like these cracks and these holes everywhere. I mean, I really honestly think that there needs to be an overhaul as far as the whole transportation in California is concerned. I mean, it really is ridiculous. It doesn't matter when you're driving or how you're driving, you're gonna end up with a lot of people on the road, and it's unfortunate because there's not a lot of alternate transportation in California. Yes, you have the train, but again, the trains are kind of limited as far as how many there are and where they go and all that. So it's just really hard, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that there's just too many people within that area. At least where if you're driving to the major cities, either LA or San Francisco. Um, Now on top, this kind of ties in with the traffic, but the big cities in California in general, I think, are pretty ridiculous. What makes them ridiculous is not only the fact that you have to drive a significant portion of your day down just to get there, but the parking is pretty awful. Especially, and I'm talking San Francisco and LA, because when you arrive, you are gonna have to at least pay probably. I know in San Francisco it was like, I think it was like $20 an hour or something ridiculous like that just to park your car. And what's stupid about LA too is the meter things that where they make you put in change and stuff. I think there's some that take credit cards, but it's still so annoying because people don't usually carry change around. At least I'm not a person that carries a lot of change around. So when I would ever have to park, it would be super inconvenient. And I'm sure this is a problem in a lot of major cities. Um, and the fact that they're really dirty and not well kept, that's another thing that's really a bother as far as these bigger cities within California is concerned. But I mean, just the level of dirt and uncleanliness, and it really just doesn't make you want to go there. It really doesn't. Especially when people tell me like, oh, I'm gonna go to LA for tourism purposes, and it's like, what do you want to see? I mean, there's really nothing, I think, unfortunately worthy within this. I mean, at least in San Francisco, you have little touristy things like Alcatraz and the pier and things like that. But in LA, it's just all very just. It's just not worth paying to go explore LA because I just can't think of anything really nice about it. I mean, there's nothing interesting about it all too much. I mean, yeah, there's some areas that are sort of around LA that are nice, that are not part of really downtown. But at the same time, I just think a lot of the big cities are they're really kind of just worth passing by and not really exploring because they're not as nice and not as well kept, and you're charged crazy amounts just to even park your car there, and you have to just deal with all of this traffic just to even get to them. And yeah, there's just a lot of unfortunate things that I think are part of the bigger cities within California that I think definitely need to be changed, because it really makes you not want to drive down there and really not go anywhere because of how horrible it is. Um, but last and certainly not least, California's been known to have been one of the most populated states, and I will say that is true. And it's not, I think, the amount of people that's the problem. I think it's where the people are, because there's a good chunk of people that are in like Southern California, like LA, San Diego, and then there's people that are up north, San Francisco. So it's pretty condensed. There's not a lot of people that are kind of spread out throughout California. It's kind of like pretty much a good section of the country lives either in San Francisco, or section of the people within the state live in LA or San Francisco. And I think that makes it a problem because it makes it very hard to get around, especially to get around to the big cities and to go see places and do things. And again, it's also an opportunity factor too, because most people, work in LA, but they don't want to live in LA. And so I think the problem is too is there's not a lot of huge opportunities, at least within the middle section of the state, and even around where I live too, because again, they don't have that much people there. It's a difference between a million and 20 million people, and I think that's kind of a problem. So if California were, I think, a little bit more spread out and businesses moved more so to different areas within California, I think the overall lifestyle and the flexibility would open up a lot more within California because people would be able to get to work a lot more conveniently. People wouldn't have to be stressed, I think, constantly with the traffic, and I think people would feel a little bit less overwhelmed um, when they go to the big cities and there's all these people and there's too much condensed space. Again, that's the problem. It's not the problem that there's too many people. The problem is there's too many people in one spot. So I think that's a big issue, and I think there could be some changes made to that would make it a whole lot easier for people living in California. Um, but yeah, this is sort of my pros and my cons as far as living here. More than welcome to hear comments, disagreements, anything that you have to say as far as what I've addressed in this video. Be more than happy to answer any questions that came up. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a pleasant day, week, month, and year, and I hope to see you all in the next video. Take care.